everyone, welcome to my extended video, mainly talking about eclipses, but I will also go into each of the rising signs for the effect of the eclipses and what houses, i.e. what areas of life may be involved for you. Alright, so what is an eclipse? What actually happens in the real universe that causes us to have an eclipse? I mentioned briefly in my previous video that it is an intersection, right? So what you have to visualize is the sun has a path that it travels along, and that's called the ecliptic, right? But we also have the moon also has an elliptical orbit around as well, and it goes around the earth, which in turn obviously follows along the ecliptic as well. So what the moon has that causes the eclipses to happen is that it actually has a tilt of about 5 and a bit degrees, just like the Earth has. So as this tilted moon goes around its own orbit, it's going to be uncommon for that tilted moon to actually hit the actual axis that the sun or the ecliptic is on. And it's that juncture, you have to be within a few degrees at that juncture to actually have it called an eclipse. I'm not going to go into every single detail in this eclipse because I just want to explain things to you and then maybe let you think about it. If you did want to learn more, I can tell you that this book is awesome. So this is called The Eagle and the Lark, and it's by Brady, and I would highly recommend it because she gives some very useful practical information in here, as well as going into all the different cycles, the Saros cycles or Saros series, and that's like the next thing I'd like to speak about. So there are lots of names and cycles that you can give to eclipses. There's actually quite a few. I was surprised how many. But two of the main ones that are referred to are, first of all, the one that Brady talks about, and that's the Saros series. And she talks about that in her book as well and gives you the list of when they happen. And this is viewed as one of the most accurate type of series, and it can go from the number 1 to 19 in terms of the series. Currently, we are in a Saros series for this month, and next, the last one at the end of the year. We are in a 2 South Saros series, and this refers to our individual involvement and groups. We're also in a 3 North, which covers the Cancer eclipse, and that is where big plans and ideas, news that comes in, but there's just a caution to be excessive. We're going to want to express ourselves, and it's just to put some calmness on the excitability. That's that Cancer one. And then the final one that will be happening in Capricorn is a 3 South series eclipse, and this is more about emotional transformation as it applies to relationships. So it's these 3 different areas that these Saros series, individual Saros series, covers. Now these Saros series can and usually do go on for thousands of years, so the effects of each of these series is significant over long lengths of time. Now what's interesting is, you may remember we had our first Cancer eclipse on the 13th of July last year, 2018, and that was at 20 degrees. Well, that belonged to a different Saros series. That belonged to what is called 2 Old North. Now, what's specifically interesting about this is that particular Saros series will come to a complete end in a lot of our lifetime. So it'll come to a complete end on the 21st of August. 2036. So you can mark that year of 2036 of being a significant year especially as it relates to action concerning personal relationships. That's the theme. So there's a theme that goes along with each of these. Now there is another cycle called the Metonic cycle, and that is a cycle that basically looks at approximately 20 years where the eclipse degree will repeat itself. So this is, I suppose, one of the easier ways of saying, hey, how is this eclipse going to affect me? Go back 20 years from, this year, 2019, and see what themes were happening in your life, or what things came in, people came in, or even events, because that will give you at least an indication of what might be happening for you during this series of eclipses that we're having this year. I tend to see in clients that what may have happened 20 years ago might have been a wake-up call, or a new thing that came in their life, and now this 20 years later, they're being given an opportunity to bring it up to another level, or have new elements brought in, but with the same theme. Okay. Now in my case, I can tell you, I had a number of things. I moved myself from one country to another and came actually to San Diego, and I knew it was in my heart the thing to do. It was meteoric in terms of how quickly I had to come down here. I think within 3 weeks I had to sell everything, have my kids with me, get them all sorted out, and figure out all about San Diego and my job within 3 weeks. So it was, but at every step of the way, I had no doubt that this is what I should do. And I tend to be a person who thinks things over carefully. But this was one of those trigger points, and the eclipses were certainly involved for me at this time. And so now I come back 20 years later now, and I'll be interested to see what happens. I think this will be reflected in a major change potentially in my life. Just generally speaking, I think I expect all aspects of my life to change, but I'll keep you posted. So I'd like to hear from you too, for those that like to provide comments. You can also email me as well at elpisastrology@gmail.com if you wanted to speak to me, separately. But I think it would be fun, especially with these eclipses, to find out what areas of our lives we're thinking Anyway, we can set up a conversation with those that feel they would like to do this. So when I look at the potential effects of eclipses when I'm with a client, I always look at a few things, and I mentioned in my first video that the luminaries, the sun and the moon, are the most important to look at in terms of effects. So if you've got any of these eclipses, but it will keep it on this set of eclipses in July, so that would be if you've got a sun or moon that is in Cancer, and I'm looking at around 10 or 11 degrees as an exact, so you'd have to have a sun or moon at around 10 or 11 degrees of Cancer. You can use an orb that's wider than that. You can go from 5 degrees Cancer to 15 degrees Cancer, but I would say the effects lessen more and more as you go further away from the eclipse degree. And again, that's 10, 11 degrees of Cancer. But you're also looking at the opposite sign too, right? So we're looking at 10, 11 degrees of Capricorn. Have you got a sun or moon there, first and foremost? Secondarily, I look at ascendant, descendant. I didn't mention this on my first video, but the ascendant, descendant also is a very strong angle. So now we're looking at angles of the chart. That's one of the strongest ones to have. There are other angles too, but this, I'm going over the biggest strength, okay? So that would mean you have an ascendant or a descendant at 10 or 11 degrees of either Cancer or Capricorn. And then of course a stellium, and that's 3 or more planets hovering around this 10 or 11 degrees of Cancer or Capricorn. Okay. Then the next thing I look at is, of course, the houses. We've got 1 to 12 houses in our charts. And this tells us what area of our life will be affected. And you only get these houses being revealed to you when you do your astrological chart using the exact or close to the exact time. That's why astrologers always emphasize I have to have the right time, because the ascendant changes every hour or so, depending what it is, as well as obviously the planets change too, especially the moon. And the moon and sun being very important, as well as the ascendant, descendant, you want to get these as accurate as possible. So there's going to be 2 houses that will be affected for each of us for this eclipse, depending where Capricorn falls in your chart and where Cancer falls in your chart. So at the moment, these eclipses are really stressing Cancer, right? And then the opposite sign of Capricorn. So I would say, just generally speaking, Cancer and Capricorn signs, by ascendant especially, are the signs that are going to be most affected this year and into next year too. So expect changes in your life, Cancer and Capricorns. So we always have the nodes of the moon. And as I said, the nodes of the moon are that intersection point of the ecliptic as well as the moon itself. So the nodes change from this Cancer-Capricorn axis in May 2020, and they go into Gemini and the opposite sign Sagittarius. So the north node is what we're talking about. And so this is what the emphasis will be from May 2020. So we're talking about an area of influence of what I'm just talking about coming up to May 2020 with the Cancer-Capricorn axis. So what I'm going to look at next is to briefly go through each of the signs. Now, the only way I could do this to generalize the messages is to use whole signs or equal house system. So really, when people talk about that, what they're saying is that they divide the chart up into equal houses of 30 degrees for each and every sign. So that's how I'm actually reading for this next part of my video. And because this first eclipse is in Cancer, I thought I would start with those that have Cancer rising. And so for Cancer rising, this affects your first house, Cancer, and then it affects your 7th house, which is the opposite, Capricorn. But what's interesting and what adds so much more emphasis to these eclipses, and I guess the real gravity of them and the real influence of them on us individually, is that for those that are Cancer rising, you've got the north node there, the north nodes of the moon are influencing your sign, which are all about our destiny, right? So destiny is huge for Cancers this coming year. But we also have Venus there during most of the month of July. So this is, to me, in simplest terms, it's friendships, relationships, our values, even money could all be polished up in a really good way starting from these eclipses. People, places, things coming into our lives where things just change for the better in these areas. Now, your 7th house is the relationship house for you as a Cancer rising. And then in this house, you've got powerful, powerful planets that all speak to karma and transformation. So this is Saturn, Pluto, and then the south nodes. Now, you also have, in December 2019, Jupiter is going to join all those planets in Capricorn too. So it may be something also happens in December, but we can talk about that later in the year, but I'm just giving you kind of a heads up. This is an absolutely phenomenal year for Cancer rising individuals to transform their life. You're going to be given many opportunities, places, things, events, like I said. Some you probably can't even imagine at this point. Now, I always go back, and I'll start this, I won't say this for every sign, free will is always available to all of us. That's what makes us unique as human beings. So you could be presented with a lot of these things and just decide, I want to stay with the old. Now, sometimes when that happens, the universe steps in and says, this has to change. And this is one of those years where You can't just really lay back and say, nah, maybe I'll do that next year. Something will come in. And I hope in most cases it'll come in a good, gentle way, but sometimes when we refuse to look at the obvious, other things come in to put a halt to that. So this is a real activity of going on that path that you're supposed to be on of destiny, and letting go of all the things in your life that, sure, they may have been a good crutch, but they're not helping you on your destiny path. Okay, so we'll leave that as it is. Next one is Leo rising. Well, Leo has the 12th house and the 6th house emphasized. So the 12th house is really a house that it's ruled by Neptune and Pisces, and it's really all about going internally. So it might be a time that you decide to take up some kind of form of metaphysics or spiritual type teachings where this really feeds your soul. So this is all about you feeding your soul in a good way, where from the inside you change yourself to reach for higher level spiritual, connecting with source, reading something like Eckhart Tolle, anything along that line. And then the 6th house, which is where the Capricorn eclipses will happen this year, is really where our day-to-day work is. So this may change up for you. Now it may be simple on the surface. Your whole job takes on an active tone where you have to wear a lot of hats, but a lot of these hats may actually help you realize what you want and what you don't want. It's also about health, any form of health. So we're talking about your exercise regime and your eating habits. Might be a time where you change all those, or where you're forced to change it. You realize you've got some disease state that needs to be addressed through exercise and or diet. When we look at Virgo rising, we have the 11th house is where Cancer is, and the 5th house is where Capricorn is. So this really puts you on a path of joining new groups and new friends for sure, and new groups that you may join to help you get on your destiny path. Your 5th house, which is where Capricorn is where you have to do a redo. So this is where you're transforming yourself and maybe letting go of a lot of old structures that just don't work for you anymore. Now, the 5th house covers a lot of things. So it could be children. So one or more of your children could be leaving home to go to college, or just leaving home, or coming back. I've had that happen a few times. You could actually have a child. An eclipse could certainly bring something like that. And if you're looking to have a child, where you've maybe given up having a child, that something happens and somebody's pregnant. But at the core of it, the 5th house is really all about everything Leo, and that is expressing our authentic self and having fun. So this could be a time where you realize you're not being authentic, right? And that it's because you're living in some kind of structure. It might even be a physical structure like your home that you need to let go of. And but it could be relationships, it could be even your work. It could be a time too where you let go of one business, your own business, and decide to start up another one, or just let go of your business. Usually pertains to your own business though. But I always feel that when something's activated in your 5th house, like an eclipse, plus you have all those other planets in there, I feel it's expressing your authentic self and breaking free and having fun where you may have not had fun before. And doing it with those new friends and groups that you belong to. Libra rising is interesting. You have Cancer, new starts with that eclipse in the 10th house. So this is starting maybe a new career, a new job that's significant for you to get on your destiny path. And then the opposite is going to be your 4th house, which is where Capricorn is. So the 4th house is your home. So there may be, over this next year, a dynamic set up where you have to weigh out, because that's certainly Libra, the benefits in both. So this could play out in a lot of ways. It could play out where you're not home as much because this new career that you're in. You could leave a home and have to go somewhere for a career, like go to a new city for a career. It just could be also that you decide for a whole new career, and this career would be more to do with feelings and compassion and caring for people, right? That would be the career choice. And then the fourth house may set up a dynamic where you have to let go of things. Maybe you've been handling too much in the home and you have to offload some of your duties and responsibilities to other people in the home. So that kind of thing can happen as well. But just on the surface, it could mean that you get a new home. And it's as a result of you having to start this new career or new job. Scorpio rising, we have Cancer in your 9th house. And then your 3rd house is Capricorn. So the 9th house is ruled by Sagittarius and Jupiter. So this is like going, it could literally be traveling. You deciding to move to a whole new country and getting opportunities to do that. And the 3rd house is more about your neighbors, you may need to let go of your old neighbors, right? And perhaps even your siblings. You can't stay in contact with your siblings. Maybe you were living with them or they were in the same town, but as a result of you going on this big major quest in a different country, those are affected as you won't be seeing them as much. But it could also involve communication. So it just may mean that you let go of an old way of communicating. So that's the main thing that we're talking about in the 3rd house. It can be things like presenting, like literally presenting to people, communicating to people, and you may just decide that you need to let go of old ways that don't really work really well for you to set you on this new path that you were going on. So that's kind of a simple way that this could play out. It is your neighbors as well, so like I said, it could be you leaving those old structures of the neighborhood behind to go on this grand quest that you want to go on. But certainly the 9th house is to do with higher levels of thinking and our higher consciousness, and taking the high road, as well as even higher learning. So maybe you go to a different country to learn new things that are important to you. And that could be combining some of those things, maybe going to live in an ashram or a yoga retreat for a month or a couple of months to bring yourself to a higher level, but to also change your career. When we look at Sagittarius rising, it is your 8th house for Cancer and your 2nd house for Capricorn. So the 8th house I always view as the house of really understanding your psychology. It might be you taking up psychological therapy, where you begin to see a therapist to start clearing out some of the cobwebs that are holding you back. But the whole idea is that old programs and maybe even people are holding you back from getting on your path. And there has to be new ways of seeing your psychological makeup to get on this destiny path that you're on. Now it also coincides with other people's money. So if you're, say, married and you're sharing finances, something significant may come up at this time. It may be that you as a couple, but it was initiated by you, decide to take some money out of some savings or some pension. You start some pensions so that you can do something you've always wanted to do in your life. But the idea is really the transformation of yourself mentally and psychologically. But it could involve also you deciding, as a result of you changing your psychological makeup, that you want to use some joint held income and you get that changed up. I mean, you could also decide to really look at your income that you have in pensions or in savings or in anything else where someone's managing your money. It might be a time to really look closely at that. So if you're getting some inspiration or indications that maybe you should be looking at this stuff, don't ignore that. This is not the time to ignore it. You need to look at that and know what's going on in that area of your life. Now with the 2nd house, that is Capricorn. So the 2nd house is where you earn money. So this may be a time where you let go of a certain income that has been sustaining you, and you use that pension or savings or investments now to sustain yourself. I think that's what this may turn out to be for the Sagittarian rising. 2nd house is all about our values, so it could be letting go of old values that maybe were your parents or even your ancestors that just don't mean anything to you and aren't helping you become, who you should be in this lifetime. All right. Now we're going to look at Capricorn rising. So Capricorn, you're another sign that is earmarked this year and beyond for major changes. Now for you, there may be a lot more happen with regards to your partners or partnerships. That could be both business and marital, where those change and it forces change on you. That's just a general theme that could come up for you as a Capricorn rising. But certainly you have your 7th house is where Cancer is, and then your 1st house is where Capricorn is, obviously because you're Capricorn rising. So in many ways, the influence of Saturn, the South Node, and Pluto, which are all exerting very karmic, transformational changes of letting go of things and structures that you don't find useful, are also going to be a big theme for you. All right? And then looking at your 7th house, which is partnerships, and this is where Venus is most of this month, but it's where the North Node will be up and into next year. This is you taking a new destiny path with regards to your relationships. And because Cancer's involved, we're talking about, people who make you feel good, people who nurture you. Your mother could be involved as well. Something happens in your mother's life. But certainly the theme for you in relationships is going to be, is this nurturing me? Is this business relationship nurturing me? Is this marriage or partnership nurturing me? And is it making me feel safe, secure, loved, and loving to you? Right? And in turn, are you giving the same back? So these are all things that will be areas that you'll be thinking about during this year and into part of next. Aquarius rising, we have the 6th house in Cancer and your 11th house in Capricorn. So the 6th house, I've spoken about this already, but these are like new starts for you and new beginnings, new opportunities for you to have a lot more nurturing in your life. You're going to be looking at, does this food I eat nurture me? Does this exercise program I do nurture me? Or is it just I'm doing this by rote and increasing my muscles and losing this weight? That's all I'm interested in. And the question would be, like I said, is to ask yourself, but is this really taking care of my body, or is it maybe doing some damage to my body? So that's the kinds of thing that you would bring up. The other thing is, of course, is your job, your day-to-day job. You may have some new destiny path offered you in your job, your day-to-day job, that ties in these themes of nurturing. And it could involve nurturing through the body, whether it's exercise and or what you put in, the food that you put in your body. But certainly this destiny path will open up with regards to the day-to-day work you're supposed to be doing. When we look at the 12th house is where you need to let go of things and where things need to transform. So a lot of these are going to be internal things, and I would say first and foremost, it's going to be your spiritual self, right? So I would suggest that you maybe take up some videos. Those are the easiest things. Go on YouTube and look at some metaphysical, I'm not going to determine which kind of thing you want to look at, but something maybe that you've had in the back of your mind for a long time or that's tweaked your interest. Maybe start watching some recommended videos, maybe even get some books that pique your interest, that start you thinking more about how could I develop my spiritual side more. I always default to Eckhart Tolle. I think he's one of the most marvelous people in our lifetime right now that is espousing this type of thing and really gives you a lot of information to help you evolve into your higher self. So by default you could go to him. But certainly things like yoga, if you hadn't taken up yoga, maybe dive into a little bit more yoga and understand yoga as a practice, what this is supposed to be doing for you. that may be useful too. Maybe even becoming a yoga teacher. That would be awesome. Right, when we look at Pisces, now, you know, Pisces, you have, of course, Pisces rising, you have Neptune in your sign, and Neptune has a combination of effects. At its highest level, Neptune will bring you into that higher level of consciousness where we all are one, and great compassion, great love, the greatest loves of our life can come in via Neptune. But the other side of Neptune is that you can also have people deceiving you at this time. You could deceive people. It also brings in Neptunian things that are like drugs and alcohol, but it could also get us involved in high-level art type things. That would be music, poetry, but it can be art itself, especially something like, say, creating things with our hands. So these are things that you've got to sort of also put into this mix of these eclipses, is that you've got that overlaying theme of Neptune there too. So the best thing to do is to always go with your higher level self-thinking. When you're asking yourself, should I do something over this? Neptune's staying in there for quite a few years, but let's just talk about this year and a bit into next. Take care of who comes into your life. If your intuition is going to be at a high level, you probably never have your intuition this high in your life again. So pay attention to your intuition. If you get some kind of hit that this place you're at, this person that's here, this thing that you could be engaging in doesn't seem right to you inside, something's inside saying, check it out, especially this year and next, because this will tie into this Cancer eclipses, because Neptune, of course, is a water sign, you being a water sign, and then the eclipse, especially in Cancer, is a water sign. So there's going to be, it's a fast energy with the trine, so you may be given limited opportunities, so pay attention to your intuition is what I'd be doing. And you may get some of these intuitive messages much earlier than the event. So there you go. The other thing is, of course, your 11th house. So 11th house, this is an area where you may be letting go of groups and friends that don't really fall in line with you and where you're going as your destiny path. So expect to have people leave your life, is what that boils down to, and potential new ones set in place. Aries rising, we have your 4th house is where Cancer is in, so those are new starts, and then the 10th house is where Capricorn. So this says that you may have some new unexpected beginnings in your home life. So this could be literally new people coming into your life that stay in your home. This could be like a child or children coming back. I talked about that earlier, coming back into your life. But the difference here is that this is going to be for your benefit in terms of getting on your destiny path. This could also be you deciding to do your work in your home, but it'll be nurturing you, whatever it is that you decide to do. It will be providing a nurturing type effect. The 10th house is where you've got to let go. So to me, one of the easiest things I can think of is you letting go of a corporate career that you've been pounding away at for years and finally decide, I'm going to have my own business and I'm going to work out of my home, or I'm going to do this job part-time and I'm going to do it from my home. And I'll go in on WebExes and communicate on phone and through the internet, as opposed to being in a corporate office. To me, that's like one of the easiest dynamics of how this could play out. But you may have things happen in your career that may force you to get out of that career. You may lose a job. But then that will give you the opportunity to do what you want in terms of nurturing yourself, that whole Cancer thing, right? Where you start working from your home instead. It could be a time too where your mother plays a part in your life, or your old home that you literally were brought up in somehow plays a part in your life in terms of your destiny itself for this lifetime. When we look at Taurus rising, we have third house in Cancer and ninth house is in Capricorn. So for you, this is new opportunities to be more compassionate and nurturing in the way you speak. So it might be a time where it's revealed to you that you're not so warm and fuzzy in your speech. Or you just look at a video of yourself or listen to a recording of yourself and say, wow, I'd like to change the way I'm literally coming across in the way I communicate. So this opens up opportunities maybe for you to take courses or enter into maybe some kind of educational program that helps you polish all this area of your life. Or it could also include presenting. Maybe you've always wanted to do presenting, but you've been very shy and not sure of yourself. Toastmasters is one of the best. I've been in Toastmasters many years ago, and it's one of the most awesome places to learn how to speak and get great encouragement from mentors that really know what they're doing. So that might be a big emphasis for you with these eclipses in Cancer for you. The ninth house is where you need to be letting go of some things. That's where Capricorn is, and transforming things. One of the easiest things for me is you get your degree. You get your higher degree, right? You get your university degree. That's a very ninth house thing. Ninth house is also about travel and foreign people. Maybe you've been living in a foreign land and you decide to go, literally to go home, right? To that Cancer part of your sign. So this is also, you could decide you don't want to do a degree anymore. Maybe you enter into doing an advanced degree and you realize, I've got these other opportunities to speak and I don't even need that degree. So it might be a decision point where you make over this next year or so where you don't decide to go ahead with that final degree and instead decide to take up maybe some speaking campaign. In fact, campaigns could be something that you do as well. Maybe political campaign is something that's up for you and you decide to take a whole new step in that direction. We've got the last sign that I'm going to do here is Gemini rising. And Gemini, you have your second house with the new starts in Cancer, and then the eighth house, letting go, in Capricorn. So the second house affords you great opportunities to earn more income, hands down. So keep an eye out for unusual, unexpected maybe communications that come in and say, hey, would you like to work for me in this job? And it gives you a lot more money. But that's what's up for you, just generally speaking. That's what I see. And the other thing is, with the second house, of course, is your values. So it's values, money, and beauty, and love. So all these things are up for you. Love, values, and money that you earn during this eclipse season. And it could be one of them, it could be all three of them that are up for major new positive beginnings. And letting go of stuff in the eighth house. So the eighth house is mainly our psychological makeup. So a very simple thing that you could do is ruminating. I'm heavy on this, the ruminating part of it. I've worked very hard and continue to work very hard. That's one of, I think, the biggest destroyers of our confidence and self-worth is ruminating. And that might be an area of your life to work on, to notice the ruminating. So ruminating is just repeating things over and over and over. She said this, he said that, I don't like the way they did that. Letting that go, like really letting that go. And then working on putting positive affirmations in there instead, or just having a positive look at what's happening to you. You know, instead of saying, oh, I've got to go pick my daughter, my son up from school again, turning that around and saying, I have the opportunity to actually go today and pick up my son and my daughter. How lucky am I to do that? So it's that type of thing. I'll bring up Eckhart Tolle again. You can certainly, he's my default in terms of bringing ourselves to a higher level of consciousness. and living in a more positive world now, right now. These are things you can do right now. But certainly you can look on the internet. You can even do something as simple as cutting out positive affirmations and maybe putting them on your mirror, putting them in your car, so that you can have this mirrored thing, dynamic set up where you set up yourself and your mind to be positive, and then it follows that your actions will be positive and your thoughts more positive. I really like that for the Gemini rising. The 8th house also could be a time where you finish up therapy, or you put some of your shared resources or pensions or investments into a long-term situation that you can't touch it for a long time. That could be another effect with the 8th house. Well, I hope everyone's enjoyed this. I'd like to hear as this July eclipse season unfolds and the summer, I would love to hear, really love to hear from you guys to see how this is playing out for you. And I know my audience likes to hear it too. I wish you the best for this eclipse season. And I did want to mention one other thing that I didn't mention in my main video that's significant for that new moon in Leo on the 31st of July. We also have another important aspect. We have Mercury retrograde opposing Pluto. So these are essentially powerful words, powerful transformational words could come to us, you know, from other people, or we could give those to other people. It can also be power putting down its foot. So I'm seeing this on a collective level. There may be some, I'm thinking of powerful nations delivering some very powerful messages that affect that whole security, safety access for us. Okay, I'm ending. You will see me again. You'll see me again certainly by the end of July, but watch me on Instagram. I'm going to be a lot more active in August. You'll be seeing a lot more videos, Instagrams, Facebooks from me. I'm going to be devoting a lot more time to my astrology starting in August, and I look forward to interacting with each and every one of you. Stay positive, and as Ellen says, be kind to each other. Bye for now.